Discussion and debate. Building an argument. Unit 4. Task A. Read and discuss. Listen to the reading and follow along in your textbook. The reading introduces the topic and some of the key ideas you will need to develop your argument. As you listen, think about your own views on the topic.
Virtual reality, or VR environments, are becoming increasingly popular, offering immersive experiences that blur the lines between the real and the digital. But what rules for ethical behavior should apply in these virtual spaces? Ethical behavior refers to actions that are morally right and respectful towards others. In VR, the application of ethical rules could help reinforce social norms and moral standards. Conversely, without these rules, VR could promote negative behaviors such as cyberbullying or virtual misconduct, allowing them to go unchecked. This could have psychological effects on users, as the immersive nature of VR can intensify emotional experiences. For example, someone who experiences bullying in VR might feel deep distress, similar to in real-life situations. However, some consider VR to be a place of freedom and creativity, where users can explore and express themselves without the constraints of real-world rules. Therefore, imposing strict ethical guidelines could stifle creativity and limit the potential of VR as a tool for exploration and innovation. Additionally, defining what is acceptable and unacceptable in VR opens a Pandora's box of potential complications and gray areas. As VR technology evolves and becomes more integrated into our daily lives, it's important to consider both the necessity of maintaining respectful and safe virtual spaces and the desire for freedom and creativity in these new digital realms.
Task B. Comprehension check. Consider each question and use information from the reading to develop your response. Think about how these ideas could be used to support either side of the argument. Task C. Vocabulary building. Complete the vocabulary activity. Pay attention to how each word or phrase is used, as you will be encouraged to use this vocabulary when you present your argument. Now check your answers. Task D. Useful idioms. Complete the idiom activity and check the meaning of each expression. Consider whether any of these expressions could be used naturally in your argument. Now check your answers. Then take the vocabulary and idioms quiz. Task E. Discussion language. Study the discussion language and complete the activity. Practice using these expressions to help you structure and communicate your argument clearly. Task F. For and against. Listen to both model arguments and follow along in your textbook. Notice how each speaker states a position, develops reasons, introduces evidence, and uses the language from the unit. Consider which arguments you find most convincing.
As virtual reality becomes more realistic, the need for ethical rules becomes increasingly important. One reason is that virtual misconduct, including cyberbullying, can have genuine psychological effects because immersive VR can influence behavior and moral judgment. A behavioral experiment by Donovan and colleagues in 2024 found that an immersive VR experience significantly influenced moral reasoning and care-related moral values. This comes at the expense of allowing users complete freedom to behave however they wish. Without clear standards, harmful behavior may become normalized through repeated exposure to abusive or unethical virtual interactions over long periods. Another reason is that virtual communities function more effectively when users follow shared social norms and demonstrate respectful behavior. These expectations encourage positive interactions and make online environments safer for everyone. Finally, users may gradually struggle to separate acceptable behavior in virtual environments from real-world conduct if unethical actions are repeatedly rewarded or ignored. Establishing clear rules can prevent VR from opening a Pandora's box of increasingly harmful behavior and help create responsible digital communities. For these reasons, ethical rules should apply to virtual reality environments just as they do in everyday society, and remain important as technology continues to develop.
Virtual reality offers opportunities for creativity and exploration, that should not be restricted by excessive regulation. One reason is that users often enter virtual worlds to experience situations from another person's perspective. A behavioral experiment by Van Loon and colleagues in 2018 found that VR perspective taking increased cognitive empathy toward the person whose perspective participants experienced. Whether applying strict ethical rules to virtual reality environments is worth limiting creative freedom depends on how society values user safety, innovation, and freedom of expression. Another concern is that enforcing strict user conduct, ethical behavior, and moral standards across every virtual environment may reduce personal freedom while creating privacy issues. Although harmful behavior should be addressed, users can usually distinguish between fictional role-playing and dangerous actions. Healthy virtual communities often develop their own standards without excessive intervention. Rather than creating rules that cross the line into excessive control, developers should provide reporting tools, education, and flexible moderation that respond to harmful conduct. For these reasons, virtual reality should remain an open environment supported by responsible community management rather than extensive regulation, while encouraging innovation and creative expression.
Task G. Comprehension check. Answer the questions about the model arguments. Identify the speaker's positions and evidence, and practice challenging one of their points. This will help prepare you for the rebuttal task later. Task H. Springboard. Read the quotation and consider how it relates to the topic. Introduce the quote and explain what it demonstrates. Consider whether the quotation could be used to support your own argument. Task I. Exploring evidence. Complete the evidence activity. Each unit introduces a different type of supporting evidence. Consider how this type of evidence can make an argument more convincing and how you could use it in your own argument. Now check your answers. Then take the evidence type quiz. Task J, supporting an argument. Develop a reason for your position and support it using the type of evidence introduced in this unit. This will give you practice connecting a reason with relevant supporting evidence. Task K, gathering data. Study the infographic and identify information that could support either side of the argument. Consider which facts or data would be most useful for supporting your own position. Task L, building an argument. Now bring together what you have learned throughout the unit. Choose whether you are for or against the discussion statement. Use the Building an Argument page to state your position and develop 3 clear reasons supported with relevant evidence. Use the evidence type introduced in this unit once in your argument, and identify your sources by giving the author or source title and the date. Where appropriate, try to incorporate the discussion language, vocabulary, and idioms you learned in the unit. When you have completed your notes, use them to record your spoken argument and post your recording to the Spoken Argument Forum. Do not simply read your notes, use them to help you explain your argument naturally. Finally, listen to another student's argument. Choose one point they made and record a rebuttal explaining why you disagree. Thank you for your efforts this week. See you in the next lesson.